nuanced civil disobedience is that civil disobedience is, a legitimate tactic, but you just need to think about it. And that's something that like really needs to be thought about, is that when you're interfering with animal enterprises, if you're interfering with animal enterprises, like there's real laws, criminal laws, and people may try to sue you. And I don't know how different it is in Arizona, but just know that the more successful you get, and it sounds like you're doing amazing things that are really important, that like you might be getting this pushback too, and that it sucks.
We'd love to have a conversation about that with you.
Yeah, I mean, it'd mostly be my thoughts about it, and then I can help set you up with like radical lawyers in Arizona too, because I don't know anything about it. If you are interested in civil disobedience in New York, I could tell you, your like rights and liabilities. It wouldn't happen, but I genuinely know nothing about the criminal justice system in Arizona. Oh, and then other people too to look into, but I'm not sure, is NYU has a monopoly also, and their food monopoly person is also the person that supplies food to all the prisons in New York State. And I don't remember what's going on, but I know that they had something was happening that I didn't keep up with. But that's it, because I know that the National Lawyers Guild, with the National Lawyers Guild, we wanted to have our like annual fundraiser maybe at one of NYU's buildings, and they told us we would have to go with their caterer, which is the prison caterer. And Lauren Gazzola from the Shack 7 People is on the executive committee now, and she said that she ate enough of their food over like the course of like 4 years of being in prison. So,
Dang, cool.
I think those are my thoughts. Sorry if that's too many.
No,
that's
great.
Oh, and your cafe thing sounds amazing. I would love to go do it. It sounds really awesome, really amazing.
Yeah, I think that space is going to be really essential to actually building those networks, because to do that type of civil disobedience takes, like, you already need like strong network and like community and culture behind it, and so like to have a space where we can really build that and to just empower like a vibrant, like healthy food culture in general, I think would just, boost up the health of any students like a ton. So I think it's going to be pretty like an excellent locus.
It's really impressive. It looks like a ton of effort.
It's fun. Yeah, maybe we should have like focused on that a little more, just like what the practices and values feel like, because I think every single one of us has felt just phenomenal going through this, and like I've never enjoyed work so much, Yeah.
Totally.
It's really inspiring though, everything you're all doing. It really is.
Wow. Thanks.
I'm jaded. Like, really critical. I don't like walk around telling people they're inspiring me that often, so
Thank you. Yeah, I think for us, the Really Real Food Cafe has been this it's been this dream that we're having together, and we just keep expanding, and now it's this project to get Sodexo completely off campus. It started off as just going to be this place where students do have an option to choose to opt out of campus monopoly on food, and also to explore the possibilities of veganism as like you can have real food that's vegan, and we define real food as being inherently vegan in our Really Real Food Challenge brochure. But I think, definitely like this shared dream of the cafe space has been really, really exciting, and just like networking and having potlucks to sort of like start like kicking it off with different people who are interested and in becoming involved has been really, really exciting, because it's just brought in a lot of different people who might not have originally been interested in focusing on animal liberation, but are now like really, really stoked about it and like passionate about it, and think that it's a necessary part of all movements for justice and ecological sustainability.
So I think with the connections with labor and all of this, so I did my undergraduate work at U of H, also in Houston. And so a similar situation, but Aramark in place of Sodexo. And things that we had found is, of course, for people, convicts and undocumented workers, there are not a lot of options. So likely Sodexo's vested interest in that is you can pay them less. But further, we found that lots of the workers, one, they're viewed as completely replaceable. So kind of an anecdote, woman working in the kitchen slips and falls, breaks her arm. She was fired for not being able to work because she couldn't serve food because her arm was broken. So I think that something that might be important and worthwhile is not to focus so much on the role of Sodexo in employing these individuals, but maybe what you probably are already doing is like looking for some alternative of where these people could work somewhere, you know, somewhere that they could have insurance and, you know.
Yeah, I think that's why we're very, very lucky to be in a place where a lot of new economy work is like surging, you know. And for example, like there's a group called Mercado de Sueños, which is like Marketplace of Dreams, and they're working on really infusing and supporting and developing local businesses. And many like I think the majority of the people, I can tell you all about it. It's like a really fascinating, like they have a lot of different small business incubators and co-ops and stuff like that, like help in a whole system of like support. So if someone just like has like a half-baked idea about something they would one day like to do or something, like they have an entire system of how to bring it. And the entire idea is having a marketplace where everyone's like economic selves are like totally invested and like mutually supportive and cooperative, in that like all the businesses like rise together and then looking at economic connection in a different way, you know. And the majority of the business owners at this point are undocumented, and so I think we're really lucky to be in a place where new economy work is happening, and that they're incorporating people typically exploited by our economic system. And so I really don't know like exactly what that's going to look like in the future, or how we can best like partner with them, because you know it's tricky, like I don't know, because it won't be as simple as like taking the workers and putting them there or something, you know. But
have you all talked to the workers at all to find out what their interests are, what they and what are they saying?
So this is a big conversation, especially I think I think that's really important. And so one of the things, like one of our strategies is going to be is doing this relational work and really connecting with everyone who's affected by this issue as much as we can. So that's a huge part of our strategy, and a really good point. And I think that this, we just found out through some conversations with some people in various graduate programs that, and I think the chair of the Sustainable Communities program told us basically that this contract is up for renewal in the next 2 years. So we just found this out 2 weeks ago. So the totally taking Sodexo out has become part of our conversation within the past 2 weeks. So this is we're getting started right now. So this is the Really Real Food Challenge has been happening as a way to start thinking about non-corporate vegan foods, but now making that bigger jump to okay, not just thinking about those foods and opting for them when you can, but totally rejecting corporate food on campus. And so that jump is new, and so there is a lot of work to do, and I think that relational work is totally key.
And we're currently in the process of setting up meetings with people at varying levels of Sodexo who have some sort of leadership position within the hierarchical structure, and then encouraging conversations with workers in the cafeterias and actually finding out more from people who are working there. But the way the entire system is set up, it's really difficult to actually talk to people because it's so removed from the whole process, and so that's part of why we are wanting to talk more intensively about labor and how to go about this in a way that doesn't jeopardize people's positions, because I think we're already pretty vocal about being about really real food and kind of antagonistic towards Sodexo maybe on campus. And so if finding out ways of continuing to have holistic conversations about these things and finding out what people do want out of this and ways that we can mutually benefit and not mutually, but yeah, go about more holistic practice.
And I think, I mean, the university is still going to need someone to supply those services, and the workers potentially have, depending on documentation status and whatever else, potentially could transition. I also want, you know, if you see, I don't know, Arizona's probably just as bad as Texas. Some of these things that these companies are doing within the prisons now, of these sack lunch programs, which, I mean, I don't know how effective it is to raise, I'm sure you've thought of this as well, but like raising awareness about the actual company itself, raising awareness on campus of, you know, these people are supplying food to prisoners. They're like the prison is promising them X, Y, and Z things in exchange for sack lunches, and then they're not getting the things promised and having to eat a bologna sandwich for lunch every single day. And I'm not sure how much appealing to that side of things will be effective, but
I think that's excellent. And I mean, that makes me think of the Washington Detention Center on hunger strike.
there's one in Conroe as well, Joe Corley Detention Center on hunger strike as well. They deported a man on his 50th birthday who was one of the organizers of the Joe Corley hunger strike. His 16-year-old daughter.
That's the one we were discussing
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
last week. Yeah.
If you want to talk about what food's like in prison too, I know a bunch of vegans that were in prison that like talk all the time about what their food choices are like.
Wow.
So we
Did they stay vegan in prison?
Yeah, I think almost everybody. Well, yeah, everybody who was a vegan stayed a vegan in prison.
So they did have
then-
vegan options.
Well, so not exactly. You can like buy stuff from the commissary, and
So it's a
a lot of
privileged
them
position.
were. Yeah, what?
It was kind of like a privileged position to be
Yeah,
able to stay
and
vegan.
they got to get food from the commissary mostly because they were like known, so they had people like donating to their commissary so they could have vegan food while in prison. So that's how vegans who went to prison for animal rights ended up getting vegan
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah.
So if you
It's
pay
not
for
what I was
so
except
you're
for
saying if
one
you pay for your own
friend.
food, you can get vegan food.
Sort of, like you can buy like sort of ingredients. It's still not
And
like
the prices are.
yeah, the prices are very crazy. It's still not great at all. My one friend though, who like didn't have a support fund, he just ate peanut butter jellies for 2 years, genuinely.
Well, it's not very healthy.
But I mean, but neither is a bologna sandwich for lunch. It's not. There's like no choice that is healthy. It's not like if you're eating the meat options, you're like, eating healthy in prison. You know, there's like non-vegetables for anybody. There's not like non-processed. Like it's like a processed thing in bread. But we're making a social justice cookbook, which I hope is actually good for the New York City chapter. And we had everyone submit their like prison food recipes. So we have like prison pad thai and like all this stuff that you can make from the commissary, and like was like part of the. Anyway,
Wow.
if you guys want vegans from prison and talking about terrible food.
Yeah, there was some really cool stuff that a woman, Amazon, in the founder of the Gender Anarchy, wrote me a letter about like brownie bake that she made. That's pretty awesome apparently.
Thanks. I like that a lot. That's cool. Wow.
Resourceful.
Yeah. Yeah. How cool. I think definitely the reason why we chose this question to like explore with you is, well, for one, we were really excited. We were basically thinking like we want to like really benefit from your thoughts and knowledge and stuff, and we chose that because the relational work with the workers is probably our weakest point in this right now. But I think one thing that I think is really notable is in part of our values and practices is to really investigate ourselves as a group and our own privilege, and just really try to be as inclusive as possible. And one self-aware thing that we can say as a group is that we're basically students, and that is inherently privileged, and that we're mostly female, mostly white, like all of these things, you know, and that all of our action has been based on campus, you know, and we're not really as connected to the community. And so a lot of connecting this with solidarity, prison solidarity, and solidarity with our undocumented community was a way to really connect, like, okay, if we are focused on campus and if we're doing this work, like, what are the connections where, like, the same thing being played out here is takes a different form elsewhere, and how can we, like, make that connection? And so for me, it's really important to fight Sodexo in these ways, so that, yes, we're still students doing that, but we're still in solidarity and making connections with other communities. And so I think that's very important for us as a group, and also where a lot of this action comes out of.
Do you know if there are any like groups that provide food to universities that are less fucked up? Like, 'cause I feel like if you could give an alternate, like cancel this contract and sign a contract with these people, or like this is a way with like, and ideally it would be someone who instead of having a contract is like allows for multiple contracts, and like themselves is maybe like an amalgamation of multiple contracts.
Yeah.
Right.
Does
I
this
think
exist?
the problem with that is, though, I think we've struggled with like asking that question amongst ourselves, and we've actually heard of Sodexo at other campuses having all organic and local food and actually breaking out of their model and providing it. And we need to research more about if it's actually doing that, and
That's what I
if
said.
it's, like, a
Cater Tots at
statement.
our school got fair trade coffee.
Right.
Like at least with them, like I mean, it's such a little thing, but it's like they say that this is what they do, but then you push, and then suddenly like things change.
But the tension though is that even with like organic food in our community in Arizona that's raised there, like the majority of the farm labor that's going into picking the produce that is certified as organic and more environmentally sensitive are undocumented workers who are exploited, and so it's not even that just shifting the corporate structure alone is really going to address the holistic thing. And a part of Total Liberation, as our group, has been taking the radical stand that we never settle for choosing the lesser of two evils, that we opt out of those choices altogether, and we are going to create another pathway, which is challenging and hard work, and I think that's a part of what we're wrestling with now. But I think that was a part of what was important to all of our communities that are within this Total Liberation group. And what we're struggling for. So I think that's a really interesting question and a difficult one to wrestle with, because right now our stance is that another company coming in that's an outside company isn't a solution to our community that's really sustainable, and we're dealing with water shortage in the desert and like so many other sorts of problems and issues. So yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one to wrestle with.
I feel like to sell breaking the Cater Act's contract, that you're gonna have to come up with something.
Right.
I wonder what other, have you done research into like what other really hippie schools have done? Like what did Hampshire College have for their food plan?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding at all.
Some of the ones we were totally contrary.
Right? Because I mean, I've
There's
been
some
there lunch
awesome-
before, and it's like that they have vegan, it's labeled half vegan.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think that's why we want to reach out and invite people to have like that conversation with like multiple, because there are some campuses that have excellent systems, and yeah.
Are you familiar with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers? Because this is something you might think about for getting local, farm workers who are treated the way they'd like to be. And I think Arizona and Texas have a lot of really similar issues.
Yeah.
But there was a campaign. It seems like fair trade coffee maybe is like an easy win, because that's what U of H got out of a Students for Fair Trade fight.
It's really something like coffee culture is so ingrained in a lot of the root like causes of this, you know.
I mean, and it's one thing that like doesn't make them have to change their model at all, right? They just buy like slightly different coffee beans and charge more money for it, and then call it a day. You know, it doesn't really challenge any of the profit making, like where they're sourcing stuff from, how it's happening. But
Allison and Justin, who have spoken with Sodexo about getting my hands in, but Sodexo's like resisted it so far. But I think that's like a beginning comfortable. I don't know. Like as of right now, they've resisted it, but I also think that we could like put a lot more voices behind that push.
Right, and I think right now, so a lot of the conversations that Sodexo is having is with the real food challenge, and so it is trying, like there are people who are pushing Sodexo to commit to fair trade options. And so we're sort of like trying to exist like, and not necessarily like direct critique of real food challenge, because that's important too, but really trying to say like we also can totally opt out if we can, and we're doing it. And it's going to happen in the next 2 years. So we have a lot of work to do. But yeah, like one of the ways like that we're trying to expand this conversation is we are going to be starting next fall connected to a first year seminar, working with freshman students who are going to be like helping design like the vegan menu and different events to be held at the cafe space. So that's one of the things we're really excited about.
So cool.
Yeah. And we basically get to design the entire course because of the way the Action Research Team program is like set up at our school. Is like you start an Action Research Team, and then you basically like say that you want, if you're a graduate student, you can work within the Action Research Team and first year seminar program to teach a seminar connected to an Action Research Team. So we started this team, and now I'm graduating and I'm going to be teaching in the fall this course with other members of the Action Research Team. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's like really exciting. So, but I think
What a great way to distribute the work too, in
Right.
like a really awesome way.
Yeah.
So cool.
and we figured that might make like veganism and animal rights like a lot more exciting too for students who it's a really like foreign idea to them, and like ground it in like, well, we're gonna have this cafe. And so instead of just like discussing these huge concepts, which are really important, it's linked to a space that's exciting and that they're a part of shaping. So we're excited about that. But I think we have a few more minutes to do a little bit more brainstorming. And I just want to open it up. We can keep talking about labor, but one of the things that we've done as a group with our power trainings is to discuss the different kinds of oppression that different actions or our different passions are connected to. So like speciesism is one, and corporatism might be another, and colonization is another, like so sexism, racism, like discussing all these different like matrices and how they interact with each other. So basically like if we're talking about something like Sodexo, what are some of the oppressions, these larger structural oppressions that we can connect to the work we're trying to do? And what are some of the connections that you see that maybe we haven't discussed, or some of the connections you do see that we have discussed that maybe could be made stronger?
I feel like one eternal issue for me is balancing between pragmatic and normative, and like things that you feel like will work versus like what you actually want to be saying. Because I feel like to a large extent, a lot of students would be on your side because complaining about cafeteria food is like the thing that has always been done, you know? And that when students have to pay for a meal plan and they're looking at this like thousands of dollars that they have to spend in a cafeteria, like people who could care less about being anti-corporate or anti-animals hate spending their money on bad food. So I feel like there's all of these like at least for me, like I want to still be saying like this is why you should care about this, about oppression, but then part of me is like, don't you hate paying for this shitty food? Like, so I don't know, so it's just this kind of
Right.
but like you don't want to like lose your message and be like, okay, this isn't actually just because like your food is shitty and like expensive.
Right.
Like
But you know, like it's all connected, right? And so like maybe we're not gonna specifically talk about like forced labor at that point or something, but maybe we'll talk about like just food democracy and the fact that like they don't get to choose. They have to buy a meal plan, and their choice is limited to like which meal plan. So if you want this price tag or this price tag, and just the fact that like they themselves should feel choice and the weight of their own decision and the ability to make that decision with their own lives and their own body, you know?
yeah.
And so like maybe in that case, like that if that's where they're at, like I'm sure there is a way to like talk about like what is important to us and stuff, but where they're at and what they're thinking about at that time, you know? And maybe later we can talk about forced labor.
Is it forced labor? I mean, or is it just, you said they hire prisoners, but I thought, I interpreted that to mean that after they're released from prison, they get a job there.
Oh yeah, well,
So I think you were talking about something different, right? Did you want to go into it?
well,
Or no?
maybe it was a little sloppy to just like throw that phrase out there and stuff, but I think when the circumstances of our lives are so constructed and so controlled in certain ways, then it's like the decisions we make in labor are so constrained, then it feels incredibly exploitative to me. And so I think I had that in mind when I said that, you know.
Like this concept of wage slavery, things like this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, like the people who are like making your food like don't have contracts, aren't union workers, like you get fired for whatever, get paid minimum wage, and like they're there like helping you excel academically and like get your higher paid job. Well, this is like their job forever.
And that's like not even getting into the food that's like basically produced through agribusiness and doesn't provide fair working conditions or wages for any of their workers, especially from all the food that we import from other nations, and also within our own country, where we're not paying undocumented workers enough.
Something I'm just thinking about as we're sitting here talking, and I think some things that I've been studying more recently in my my research work has been maybe connections between ableism in labor and people who are hired to work on campus in the food services. A lot of times, like again, it's kind of this exploitative labor of people who have a difficult time finding work at other places, and maybe there are some connections to make in the scheme of things with people who have disability or impairment and don't have necessarily viable alternatives to work outside of the Sodexo
Absolutely.
system.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any other thoughts or suggestions as far as this challenge, this challenge of getting really real food options for students goes, feel free to share now, and then I think we'll move into a closing statement and then open up to Q&A for anyone who can stay past.
I guess Marlene, I think might just be because you said maybe you're going to talk to people at the catering company thing. Just that I would wait though till, or I'd be super strategic about when you're talking about what you're talking about and like what you say and stuff, because I'm not going to like it.
So
seriously.
we actually, a bunch of us are, not me, but Carrie and others are pretty like good friends with this one woman who I'm not sure her exact position, but she's sort of like, she works for Sodexo, she's like oversees a lot of the campus, like how it runs on campus, but she's like totally down to have all these conversations and like basically talks about how ridiculous her job is and like how like ridiculous Sodexo is, and so it's interesting. So there's some people that we can talk to.
How's it going?
Hi.
Welcome.
I'm kind of circulating among the room.
How were the other talks?
Excellent.
How many people were in them?
More people than were, like, 106 is full. Anybody sitting there?
No.
Somebody went to green seal.
Oh yeah.
Somebody push the button. There's a stop button.
So, nobody can.
See you all tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So, I'll go ahead, or sorry, you got something
I
else?
was just gonna kind of add on. So I'm thinking about the idea of like anonymity and the person you're talking about. I mean, I'm guessing probably wouldn't really want their name attached to this. And I think it's the idea of people telling stories in general. I mean, we've kind of been saying that already, but I think that's always very compelling, just in terms of getting people on board with something. But I think so if you're going to talk to this person, if you're going to talk to that group, maybe some laborers, I don't know, I think the idea of sharing stories, maybe through like your zine or something along those lines, I like the idea of incorporating the creativity. I think that's really great. But yeah, I think it also could be anonymous for all of the people who are telling their stories. And it can also be the animal stories too. It could be like discussing like the lives and deaths of the animals. Yeah.
Cool. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
And that's actually a great transition to into our closing statement, I think, unless anyone else, please feel free to jump in at any point. Thank you so much for all of your awesome ideas so far.
So we're going to close off with actually a poem that has been a part of our process. We recently had an art walk night where we had a fundraiser for our Really Real Food Cafe, and then also had artwork that was shared by queer activist students in our community and students of color and people who are organizing around different types of issues coming together and having a creative art night together. And this poem was a part of that and a part of our kind of group process around that. So we're gonna share that, and then we'll have time for a question and answer after kind of that, because we recognize everything's going kind of late tonight, and if people need to slip out, feel free to do so. Like, that's not rude. But if you want to stay around and talk a little bit and talk about resources and other things, we will welcome that.
I just tried a text message, I'm sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
I don't usually leave it to tell someone I'm not going to call them now, so I'm not being rude, that's sweet for sure.
Sweet. Yeah, and then before, if anyone did have, like, drew something that they would want to share, we want you to be able to keep those things, but before you leave, if you wanted to share it with us, we would love to take a picture of it and contribute it to our ongoing communal artwork pieces. And so just feel free to grab one of us if that's the case. But I'll go ahead and let Mara read her piece.
Okay, cool. So I wrote this poem after reading this book called Every 12 Seconds, which basically talks about how, how oppression, how it basically fragments like sight and responsibility, and how that works as far as like division of labor goes within slaughterhouses specifically. So the author worked within a slaughterhouse where he was part of this line of like this disassembly line, basically, in which every 12 seconds there's a new being like being dismembered by the workers. And basically he talks about how the slaughterhouse, like we tend to isolate all the blame on these workers, and then even within the slaughterhouse itself, the way that it's divided up, there's even this like narrative amongst workers which isolates the blame on only the person who's actually like, who's the knocker, which is the person who shoots the animal. So I'm going to open with a quote, and then I'm going to go into it, and it is graphic, but art has been a big part of me trying to like process all this information, and I wrote this poem from the perspective of the cows, and I'm not attempting to speak for them, but really just in an attempt to listen. So the quote that I'm going to open with, this is by the author of Every 12 Seconds. He says, "If you listen carefully enough to the hundreds of workers performing the 120 other jobs on the kill floor, this might be the refrain you hear. Only the knocker. It's simple moral math. The kill floor operates with 120 plus 1 jobs. As long as the one exists, as long as there is some plausible narrative that concentrates the heaviest weight of the dirtiest work on this one, then the other 120 kill floor workers can say and believe, I'm not going to take part in this, I'm not going to stand and watch this." So I'll start. All the hands that pull us from our mothers, all the hands that fuck us on rape racks, all the hands that pull our babies from us, all the hands that shove us, all the hands on steering wheels and electric waves that push and crush us, all our bodies, shit and piss covered and so close we can barely recognize each other. These are the only hands we know. And the pair of hands that squeeze the trigger on the hot steel gun are the hands they hope will kill us, as the metal walls that squeeze our shaking bodies still is the embrace they hope will fill us with some sort of peace to die in. Yes, if we make it this far, the hands and gaze of the knocker are the hands and gaze the lucky die in. Not in the further down hands holding knives, not in the even further down hands on the disassembly lines. Still, some of us will know them, and still we will resist. Until our bodies bleed out, every ounce of this production will shake because it lives. We will not know the hands of the man counting money upstairs. We will not see our eyes roll around in our heads, nor our blood on his hands. We are numbers to be sorted, we are dollar signs to be made. We will not know the hands that wrap our dismembered corpses in cellophane. We are lies in constant fabrication. We are everything your society forgets. We are beef, we are flesh, we are already dead. But we can still smell the blood spewing from our sisters' heads. We are here to be lined up and fucked with electric prods because every 13 seconds wouldn't be fast enough, according to someone. We are here to be killed, but no one will say who has made it this way. But we want to know who does the dirty work for who. While you won't address us, we will address you. Every pair of hands that forgets is a pair of hands we resist, and we will not go willingly through this machine that sorts, kills, and rips. Even after we are dead, it will take an army to pull apart our bodies from our heads, and while you who might remember them debate our sentience, we are already bodies in resistance, and we do not consent. You will not know all these hands that shove us, that push and crush us, all our bodies into commodities you can swallow, but you will know the pair of hands that shove us, that push and crush us, all our bodies, past your lips into hollow mouths, whispering delicious lies, and building cement walls to keep our suffering inside, though it bleeds into your bodies while your faceless hands scream for more, and your society denies the slaughterhouse kill floor.
You think that's every 16 seconds at one slaughter plant?
Every 12 seconds at one slaughter. Yes.
Okay. And that's for cattle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out how many per day that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one slaughterhouse.
Okay. Per hour. So if it operates 24 hours a day, it's like about 6,600 a day.
Yeah, and so it doesn't actually operate 24 hours a day, but it does, I think it operates at least 14 hours or something. Yeah.
In his book, he has all the numbers, though, like how many cows were actually killed at the place he worked. It's Tim Patcherat. He's a professor at the New School and went undercover for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working in a slaughterhouse.
Well, the thing is that your whole thing of saying like all those other people working at a slaughterhouse say, well, it's not me, it's just that one guy at the end. I don't think it's any of them, it's all the people buying the stuff.
Exactly.
Well,
Totally.
they're part of it too, like
I
all of
think-
them.
Right, but the point is that the number of animals that go through that, it's not dependent on how many people are willing to take jobs at the slaughterhouse.
No, I think that's the, that actually is my intention in writing this poem, is really exploring that it's not the hands that are actually in contact with these beings that are solely like responsible, or that we can even isolate the blame on those people, which often happens in more mainstream, like a lot of dominant animal rights groups will sort of isolate the blame on these workers, not examining the working conditions or as in depth as they really could be, I think. Yeah.
It causes
Right.
the slaughterhouse to be open. And
Right.
for people.
And
The slaughter, yeah.
So I think, I think that at least my understanding of Timothy Patcherat's book is that I think he too would make the argument, this is my understanding, my interpretation is that society is the slaughterhouse. It's not, you can't geographically place it and isolate the blame in one place. So it is this society's demand for the products of the slaughterhouse.
Well, you touched that. Say it's these hands that.
What I found that's probably the biggest stumbling block in people. Like even if you show them the videos, they'll go, "Oh, those horrible people! If I ever saw them, I'd kill them. I hope they die. They're evil. But I'm gonna keep eating the meat." And when you explain to them, well, they're only doing what you're paying them to do on your behalf. They go, "Oh, okay, then I'm gonna go vegan." You have to explain it's really your fault, which a lot of groups don't want to do because then those are all the people donating money to them. But if you want to actually get them to change their diet, you have to make that point.
So I know we asked questions of y'all, but do any of you have questions for us or for each other? Or
How big is your group?
There's about 10 people that are regularly meeting, and then we're having conversations within our communities that are more open. So at our events, like at our fundraiser that we had last week, there were probably like over 50 people that turned out throughout the night. So so there's 10 of us that are kind of like the core that are meeting every week, and unfortunately not everyone can make it out.
Did you guys drive here or fly?
We drove, yeah,
That's-
Flagstaff.
How long?
a long time. We went slower than the GPS said it would take, so it took us probably about 21 hours total. But it was fun, we relaxed along the way. Yeah.
I have a question about the class that you're gonna be teaching, the first year students. So like when they sign up for this class, like what does it say, like in the course catalog?
I have the course description. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah.
It's
Very
short.
curious to hear.
I want to hear it.
Okay.
I was about to say to you, I was like, I wonder what people are signing up for. That's good. That was
Because I make my students
I was about to
do
say.
animal studies. They didn't sign up for it. They don't have any interest in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I'm really interested. Somewhere. Because I think how they even come into the class is incredibly important. And so like we were talking about like going to like the Gateway Center, which is like the advisors to like bring the students in and stuff, and like really advertising for the class and trying to get interested people in. But I also suspect that a good number of them are just going to be like freshmen coming in and like
not really knowing what they're
class
signing
and
up
like
for.
not knowing what they're getting into. And I expect like a large amount of resistance, really, you know, and you know, like so, like a ton of different experiences with foods in history and different food cultures like coming in, and I imagine, and the class is going to be very different from your typical like. I mean, I think university classes themselves are very commodified and like supposed to be friction free and stuff, you know, and so it's going to be very different than what they're expecting, and I really imagine like a lot of resistance. And so if you teach a class similarly, like it'd be wonderful to hear your advice really as far as like how like what works well for you, or just like what your like favorite topics are, or anything really.
Where do you? Yeah, I've never never had a vegetarian or vegan student ever, which is fun.
Wow.
So I've made them read. I tend to choose texts that aren't like really strong in terms of like, you know, being forceful in terms. You know what I mean? More middle of the road kind of. So I've taught like how Herzog's Some We Love, Some We Hate, Some We Eat, and Jonathan Safran Foer's Eating Animals, which, yeah, I would say is pretty middle. But I think those are successful for me just because they don't force the student to think anything. That I've noticed also with my students that the more if they're ever told what to believe or do, they're gonna want to do the opposite. Like just I don't know if it's also part of just the first year student like age range, not to like stereotype 18-year-olds, but they're very just in that phase of life where they want to like figure out their like own path and everything. So we did like a webinar. I'm going to talk about it all in my presentation, so I'm just like summarizing. But we did a webinar with Pfeffer, and he was much more forceful during the webinar than he is in his book. And then the students were like, oh, no, not just tell me that I have to be a vegetarian. They're very resistant to like,
So that's a struggle that we've encountered in first year seminars in general, and I've worked with action research teams around undocumented rights and also queer activism, and a lot of students will sign up for those classes not necessarily expecting a politics of activism to be engaged, and so even though students can sign up for a course or be signed up by their advisor into a course, they may know that they're going to talk about those things, but not actually people talking about the abstract idea of it, but actually like the way that impacts lives and the different intersections of what that looks like. And so that's something that Mara put a lot of thought in the construction of this.
So yeah, and so a big part of the first year seminar arts program, at least in my experience with it, and so I have a graduate assistantship right now working with a different action research team and their first year seminar, and they're sort of focused on like education and problems with our education system, and they work in an after school program kind of teaching like activism but breaking it down for elementary school students. And so they're I found that even like students who are not, they might not really think that there's anything wrong with the public education system, like doing the hands-on work has been exciting for them, and like so they'll have like good feedback. Even though I think always a part of the work is to try and encourage like critical thinking and critical questioning and of these different systems and really like deepen our understanding of them. I think that giving students something hands-on to do that's exciting to them allows for them to make more of those connections, I think. or my hope is that. And I don't think it's true for like every student, but I think I'll read the course description that we have right now, and hopefully that'll be helpful. So it's called Animal Rights and Holistic Justice, and I was limited to like however many characters that is, so I couldn't make the title as long as I wanted. So it says, want to learn more about animal rights, vegetarianism, or veganism? Always wondered if there's more to these movements than what you see on TV. Interested in learning about creative and holistic social movements that promote the well-being of humans and non-human animals. In this course, we will explore the connections between human and animal oppression, discussing how the matrix of sexism, racism, classism, ableism, homophobia, and speciesism operates in our world. From this foundation, we'll explore the sustainability and ethics of animal use in agriculture, entertainment, fashion, and science, and examine the arguments and the tensions within the animal liberation movement. Students in this course will have opportunities to gain hands-on experience in organic gardening, so that's using no animal products, because we recently are just learning that the manure that's often used in gardening is from factory farms, and we've been met with a lot of questions from people, our friends in the sustainability movement that say, or one of the sustainability movements in Flagstaff, that say well, veganism isn't sustainable. You need manure, so we're gonna try and prove you wrong. So we're starting this organic garden that students will be able to work in. So gaining hands-on experience in organic gardening, creating public art, planning their own actions, promoting well-being of animals if they're interested, and collaborating with other community groups through participation in Total Liberation Action Research Team. Through this hands-on experience, students will explore the question as we work to create a sustainable planet, what does it really look like to remember an animal connection?
What type of, is it freshmen that are taking this?
And so, yeah, it's
Undergraduate freshmen.
Yeah. And so it's big, and I think that's what's so exciting, and it's going to be challenging. But this is
So it's an
what we wanna
elective,
do.
right? It's an elective, right? They have to want to sign up for this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
From this course description, you should hopefully have a lot of people who are on board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Pretty clear.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I think that's something we really discussed is not pushing these hands-on experiences are things they need to do, and we're also going to open it up to students to whatever issues they're passionate about. Say they're really concerned about immigration reform, working with the first-year seminar that's doing immigration, that's focusing on immigration, and then bringing those conversations into class would be their hands-on experience. And so how can we really do this a holistic learning experience and activist experience for the students? And then also give other options. So some other things we've discussed. There's a poli-sci capstone course professor who's teaching an animal rights and politics course.
Hi guys, let's wrap it up.
Do you need
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Can you tie that into
Yeah.
labor relations as well, the labor movement?
Yeah.
Because we talked about immigration before.
Yeah.
That's something we talked about a little bit earlier, and I'm trying to make those connections and figure out what that is, how the, right,
And then the organic garden.
right, and everybody's, compost has had eggshells too, that's been one of our biggest things, sourcing compost and
Oh yeah, totally. And we turn off this video before we leave too. Oh, cool. We should probably do something with it. Yeah, she told us to press the red button.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
so much
Yeah,
for
thank
asking
you.
us. Here,
Yeah,
we made little
thank you.
pictures.
Keep it. I have to.
Thank you. Here you go.
Well, and if anyone,
Extra copies of their.
Is this place in Wi-Fi? How are you getting in there?
I don't know, just
I believe I'm gonna be sitting in a
Yeah, it does.
Whatever.
There's a public, and a rice Wi-Fi
so
section.
if
Yeah.
anyone's interested in brochures